Okay, let's try a couple more with our GCF. In example number 4, we have to factor, so not just take out the GCF, but factor negative 25x to the 8th plus 10x to the 7th minus 55x to the 5th. Don't get all freaked out because our coefficients are bigger and our exponents are bigger. Start by finding the smallest number. So our smallest number is 10. 25 divided by 10 is 2.5. That does not help us. So let's think of the next highest number that goes into 10. Next highest number is 5. 25 divided by 5 gets us 5. Cool, so 25 is divisible by 5. We know 10 is divisible by 5. 55 also divisible by 5, which means that part of our GCF is going to be 5. But notice something about our leading coefficient. Our leading coefficient, because we're in descending order, is negative. You never want to start with a negative first impression. So whenever you have a negative leading coefficient, we are going to put a negative on our GCF. Again, only if our very first term in descending order is negative do we need to worry about the negative on the GCF. Now that we have the 5, or negative 5 to be more precise, let's look at our variables. We have an x to the 8th, an x to the 7th, and an x to the 5th, which means that we get to include an x in our GCF. We just got to figure out which exponent. Remember, we're going to take the smallest of the exponents. What does everybody have that they can give? 8, 7, 5. Everybody can give 5. The first two could give more, but our last term cannot, and we're not going to take more than they can give. Since we are going to factor this out, we're going to take each of our original terms and we are going to divide each of those terms by our GCF, which we said was negative 5x to the 5th. Okay. Since we're dividing out our GCF of negative 5x to the 5th, put it out front of the parenthesis, and let's do the division. Negative 25 divided by negative 5 is positive 5. Watch your signs on this one. X to the 8th all over x to the 5th. 8 minus 5 gets us 3, so we're going to have x to the 3. Positive 10 divided by negative 5 gets us negative 2. We have x to the 7th over x to the 5th. 7 minus 5 gets us 2, so we're going to have an x squared. Negative 55 divided by negative 5 is a positive 11, so we're going to put plus 11. And then our x to the 5s cancel out. It winds up being just a 1, and we don't have to write 11 times 1. Here, we have not talked about how to factor an x cubed, x squared constant, so where we don't have everything. So we are done. Our answer is that negative 5x to the 5th times 5x cubed minus 2x squared plus 11. Let's try another one like this. Again, we need to factor. We have 6x to the 7th plus 2x to the 4th minus 3. Our smallest number is 2. 6 is divisible by 2. Cool. 2 is divisible by 2. But 3 is not divisible by 2. When we take 3 divided by 2 in our calculator, we get 1.5, and that's not helping us. So when we're looking at our GCF and we're just looking at the numbers, they don't have anything in common, which means our GCF for our number side is 1. But let's look at our variables. If they have a variable in common, we can have more than a GCF of 1. We have x to the 7th, x to the 4th, and then nothing, which means there's no variable in our GCF. If we were to try to factor this, we would have the 1 come out front, and dividing each of those by 1 doesn't do anything. It gets us back to where we were. Just like we don't write times the 1. So you can say that our GCF is 1, and this guy is not factorable. GCF of 1 is kind of boring because there's nothing to help make our lives smaller or easier. Okay, number 6. We need to factor 3 times x plus 7 plus 5x times x plus 7. Now, I know you're good students. You're like, let's distribute. Let's multiply everything. But let's not do that. And the reason for that is because we're trying to factor. We're trying to make life nicer. If you noticed, both terms have this crazy x plus 7 in parentheses showing up. On the outside of the parentheses, we have a 3. We have a 5x. 3 and 5x don't have anything in common, but they do have these little shields or parentheses attached to them. Because the x plus 7 shows up in both terms, our GCF is going to be x plus 7. Keep your parentheses. And you're like, oh, great. Where's this going from here? Well, we're going to approach it the same way. We're going to take our original, which was the 3 times x plus 7, plus 5x times x plus 7. We're going to divide each of these terms by x plus 7. So if we're dividing both of these by x plus 7 as our GCF, we're going to have x plus 7 out front and open up a new parenthesis, just like we did in our previous examples. Looking at our first one, the x plus 7s cancel each other out, which leaves us with 3 plus 5x times our x plus 7 all over that same parenthesis. The x plus 7s cancel again, which means I'm left with 5x. I can't combine my 3 and 5x because they're not like terms. The 3 doesn't have an x. Same thing with the x and the 7 in the first parenthesis, which means I've actually factored this. I am done. And of course my pen stopped working, so there we go. That's going to be our answer. Let's try one more like that. We have 6a times 2a plus 3b minus 2a plus 3b. And if you notice, we have parentheses showing up in both terms. So we're going to have a GCF of 2a plus 3b, what's in those parentheses. And since we're trying to factor this out, we're going to take our original problem as it was given to us, and we're going to divide each of our terms by that GCF, that parenthesis, of 2a plus 3b. And remember, whenever we are dividing out our GCF, it's going to go in parentheses out front. Parentheses this time because it was in parentheses, but it's going to go out front of a second set of parentheses. Let's go ahead and start simplifying. 2a plus 3b is going to cancel in our first term, which leaves our 6a minus, because we had our minus in between. When we take 2a plus 3b and divide it, you're like, those cancel out. Right. They cancel out because they divide to be 1. It's the same way that 5 over 5 gets us 1. So that parenthesis over the parenthesis gets us 1, which is how we get to our final answer of 2a plus 3b times 6a minus 1.